When Queen Elizabeth II passed in 2022, her life of duty ended exactly as she intended, guided by carefully prepared final requests. Some were modest, others deeply personal, each reflecting her preference for dignity over spectacle. Let's begin with the simpler ones, starting with her wish for Balmoral. Request 11, a private family-only burial. After the grandeur of Westminster Abbey and the precision of military processions, the Queen's most important wish was that her actual burial remain private. Cameras were cut, the public dismissed, and only her closest family members entered the King George VI Memorial Chapel for the final goodbye. It was a stark contrast to the spectacle the world had just witnessed. No trumpets and broadcasts, just silence and loved ones. Inside, her coffin was lowered beside Prince Philip and her parents. Even in death, she chose intimacy over display. That decision underscored who she was at the core, a woman who carried immense public duty, yet still guarded a private self. Her last moments belonged not to the nation, but to her family. Request 10, specific hymns and readings. Of all her preparations, the Queen's choice of hymns and readings was the most personal. She selected "The Lord's My Shepherd" and "Love Divine, All Loves Excelling," hymns tied to her wartime youth and lifelong faith. "The Lord's My Shepherd" had been sung at her wedding to Prince Philip in 1947, making its return at her funeral a full-circle moment. Meanwhile, "Love Divine" is one of the Church of England's most enduring hymns of comfort and hope. Imagine the sound inside Westminster Abbey, the choir rising, the organ swelling, and every note carrying both history and grief. These were the soundtrack of Queen Elizabeth II's life. Request 9, her beloved corgis to Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson. The Queen's corgis weren't just pets, they were part of the royal brand. Since her teens, she had owned more than 30 of them, turning the stubby-legged pups into canine celebrities. So of course, she planned for their future. Her final request was that Muke and Sandy, her last two corgis, be entrusted to Prince Andrew and his former wife, Sarah Ferguson. It was a very deliberate choice. Andrew and Sarah still live together at Royal Lodge in Windsor, making them uniquely suited to give the dogs a familiar home. And let's be honest, the idea of a disgraced prince walking two bouncy corgis became one of the oddest yet oddly endearing footnotes of Operation London Bridge. The dogs at least landed on their feet. Next, we uncover more final wishes, including one linking the Queen's treasures to Princess Catherine. Request 8, no lying in state at Buckingham Palace. Most people probably assumed Buckingham Palace, the iconic royal HQ, would host the Queen's final farewell. But Queen Elizabeth had other ideas. She specifically requested not to lie in state there. Instead, her coffin was placed at Westminster Hall, a choice that spoke volumes. Why? Buckingham was her office, not her home. To her, Windsor and Balmoral felt personal, but Buckingham was more like the world's most glamorous cubicle. So in classic Queen Elizabeth fashion, she made the call, no grand staging at the palace. And honestly, it tracks. Imagine working 70 years straight, then having your farewell party in the same office where you answered state papers every morning. Hard pass. She wanted her last journey rooted in tradition, not fluorescent office light energy. Request 7, handwritten letters to her family. Perhaps the most mysterious of the Queen's final wishes involves a series of handwritten letters, said to be left for each of her children and grandchildren. Unlike official speeches or public messages, these were sealed away, reportedly placed in the royal archives, with their contents never disclosed. Were they personal farewells? Words of encouragement? Private instructions? No one outside the family knows. And that's exactly how she wanted it. For a woman who spent 70 years speaking carefully to the public, these letters may have been her only chance to speak freely without cameras or protocol. It's a haunting thought. The world witnessed the pageantry, but the true final words of Queen Elizabeth II may remain locked in ink, sealed away from history itself. Request 6, the Queen's Piper. Every morning at her residences, the Queen awoke not to alarms or phone buzzers, but to the sound of bagpipes drifting through the windows. Her piper played beneath her chamber for 15 minutes at 9 a.m., a tradition she adored. In her final requests, she asked that this ritual follow her into death. At Windsor, as her coffin was lowered into the vault, the notes of "Sleep, dearie, sleep" filled the chapel. It was hauntingly simple. One man, one instrument, echoing through stone walls, fading into silence as he walked slowly away. That moment broke even the stiffest protocol. Many in attendance were visibly moved. it wasn't just music. It was her life's daily rhythm turned into her last goodbye. And coming up, the Queen's jewels, Catherine's legacy, and a royal secret that's never been made public. Request 5, Operation London Bridge. For decades, the Queen approved and refined the plans for her own farewell, known as Operation London Bridge. It was a blueprint so detailed it mapped out everything from the tolling of Big Ben to the precise minute her coffin would leave Westminster Hall. Far from a theatrical display, the Queen's guidance made sure the ceremonies balanced grandeur with restraint. The bells of St. Paul's in Westminster tolled with muffled clappers as ordered. Black armbands were distributed to officials within hours. Even the language of the first announcement, "London Bridge is down," was chosen under her reign. The entire operation reflected her preference, dignity over spectacle. A farewell rooted not in excess, but in ritual and order, designed to honor both monarch and people with solemn precision. Request 4, Balmoral remains open to the public. For Queen Elizabeth, Balmoral wasn't just a royal estate, it was her escape hatch from the constant buzz of duty. Tucked in the Scottish Highlands, it's where she rode horses, walked her dogs, and slipped out of the spotlight. Her final request? To make sure Balmoral remained open to the public after her passing. In other words, she wanted regular folks to keep enjoying the same hills, gardens, and trails that gave her peace. It's a surprisingly down-to-earth move for someone who lived in palaces. Think about it. Instead of clamping Balmoral down as some exclusive royal relic, she basically said, "Go ahead, have a wander through my backyard." The wish ensured her legacy wouldn't just live in marble statues or history books, but in the footsteps of anyone exploring Scotland's misty highlands. Request 3, a Scottish farewell at St. Giles Cathedral. The Queen's bond with Scotland was no secret. Balmoral was her happy place, tartan was practically a uniform, and she always lit up during Highland events. So, it made sense that one of her final requests was for her coffin to rest at St. Giles Cathedral in Edinburgh before the journey to London. This wasn't just logistics, it was a love letter to Scotland. By placing that moment in the heart of Edinburgh, she gave the Scottish people a chance to pay their respects directly, not as spectators on TV. And let's be real, it also reminded the world that she wasn't just the Queen of England. To her, as the Queen of the United Kingdom, Scotland was both a personal sanctuary and a beloved part of the United Kingdom. Request 2, her wedding ring buried with her. Among the Queen's most personal wishes was what would happen to her wedding ring. Unlike other royal heirlooms passed down through generations, she chose to be buried with it. The ring, a band of Welsh gold, was a symbol she never took lightly. Reports claim it held a secret inscription from Prince Philip, a private message engraved inside on their wedding day. The words were never revealed publicly, and now they never will be. It's one of those details that makes her story feel both regal and achingly human. For all the crowns, jewels, and thrones, her most treasured possession was something unseen, a hidden promise between husband and wife, and she wanted that promise to follow her into eternity. Request 1, her jewelry, inheritance, and Catherine's legacy. Jewelry in the royal family is never just decoration. It's history you can wear. Reports suggest that Queen Elizabeth carefully earmarked parts of her collection for Camilla, Princess Anne, and Catherine, Princess of Wales. The division was never officially published, but Catherine's role became crystal clear when she appeared wearing the Queen's iconic 4-strand pearl choker, a piece also worn by Elizabeth herself and Princess Diana. The choice wasn't just about pearls, it was about continuity. By passing such pieces to Catherine, the Queen ensured her legacy would live on in the next generation of consorts. Every time Catherine steps out in those jewels, it's not just fashion, it's the Queen's memory walking into the room with her. From her dogs to her jewels, her hymns to her hidden letters, Queen Elizabeth II shaped her legacy with the same care she gave her reign, quiet, precise, and deeply personal. Her final wishes remind us that even the most public figure left space for private choices. If you found this story meaningful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for our next video. There's always more history waiting to be uncovered.